Hi guys, I'm going to start at page 31. Um, Now there's no doubt about it. Page 31, he's on the streets of London. And there's no way out. Now there's no way out. Now there's no other possibility. He has been looking and looking for what to do, to find some kind of job, to find a way out, and there's no possibility. So now he finds himself on the streets of London. I found a doorway, a deep one, so deep that light from the street lamps and shop fronts didn't reach the door itself, and you could sit with your back against it and not be seen by passers-by. It was 9 o'clock and cold. I sat on my bedroll with my backpack between my feet, watching the bright narrow rectangle of movement and colour at the end of my little tunnel. People passed continuously, but nobody glanced my way. Nobody knew I was there. Across the street I could see subway railings with a news vendor's pitch, a road junction, and part of King's Cross Station. I sat thinking about my rat-faced former landlord who couldn't spell negotiation, about how one day I'd catch him unawares in a dark alleyway, and about the inventive and wondrous things I'd do to him there. I was angry and a bit shaken, I suppose, but I wasn't particularly unhappy. Not then. There are some things that I need to point out. First one, if we're talking about words in the sentence, in the first, we have paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 on page 31. Now, having a look at the first sentence of the paragraph 1, I found a doorway. Okay, I love this narrative that Robert Swindells uses. Short sentence, okay? Subject, verb, direct object. I, subject, found, verb, a doorway, direct object. Straight to the point. There's no beating around the bush when you're dealing with a short sentence. Okay, that's the thing. It's quick. It's there. It moves, and it puts that image into your mind immediately. Okay, this is his reality now. He found a doorway. And then comes the explanation, a good deep one, so deep that light from the street lamps and shop fronts didn't reach the door itself, and you could sit with your back against it and not be seen by passers-by. It's the setting he has now. It's the reality that he has. Okay, so what is the author doing? The author is putting that reality into our minds, us, the reader's minds, straight away. Brilliant. And there's another thing that I want to point out to you. The next one. Nobody knew I was there. It's about protection in the halfway through the second paragraph. That can mean two things. It can mean that he's kind of protected because he's there, but he's also lonely. Okay? And the third thing that I want to point out, King's Cross Station. Across the street, I could see subway railings with a news vendor's pitch, a road junction, and part of King's Cross Station. Now, there's one thing about King's Cross Station. It is a massive train station in London. Nobody who lives in London, or nobody who has travelled from London, if they're visiting, nobody who has travelled around London or travelled from London to another part of the country would not know King's Cross Station. Okay? And so what the author is doing is he is using real places. Okay? And that's a technique. Okay? He can pick that, he can put that up, and it's not the first and only, it's not the only time he's going to use it, but it's this to focus on. Okay? He uses real places for the reader to establish exactly where the characters are. Okay? And they can identify with it, but they can personally identify with it. Okay? It might be, they might not live in London, they might not have ever been to London, but they might have seen a movie, and they might have seen in that movie part of King's Cross Station. Okay? If you live in London, or if you have visited London and you have visited King's Cross Station, bang, I've got you. It's a technique to draw the reader into the story that the author has created. I love it. And it's not just, how can I say it? And it's not just in English. Aura by Carlos Fuentes. Think about location there. Carlos Fuentes using the technique of location. Okay? That thing of Donceles in the first page, Donceles. Okay? The moment that you read about Donceles, okay, you know bookstores, cameras, bookstores, people who sell cameras, cafes. You can identify walking down Donceles, walking in the Centro Histórico, walking towards the Zócalo. Okay, bang! It puts you straight there into the situation itself. You have been captured. You can identify with it immediately. Why? Because you live in Mexico City. Because you go to the Centro Histórico. Okay, that was an example from Fuentes in Spanish. Okay, and that's the most important thing, that these techniques are universal. It doesn't matter what language you speak. Okay. So we're looking at many different words here. perfect. So we can identify his character by this as well. I was angry and a bit shaken. Second paragraph, bottom of the page. I was angry and a bit shaken, I suppose, but I wasn't particularly unhappy. Not then. That tells us something, but it tells us something about the past. Not then. I was angry and a bit shaken, I suppose, but I wasn't particularly unhappy. Not then. It automatically gives us the understanding that now he's unhappy. That now he's sad. Beautiful reflections. It's a beautiful reflection, and that is the beauty of an author who writes in first-person narrative. Okay, 32. My anonymity was a comfort. At least I wasn't going to be seen by people who knew me. Also, I was one among many. My plight could have no curiosity value for anybody who might spot me, and there was no further need to fret about next week's rent. I felt free, I suppose. This was before I became acquainted with some of the setbacks, like hunger pangs and real cold, and the problem of what to do when you have to go to the lavatory and guard your bedroom at the same time. It was this last one which got me first and lost me my doorway and more besides. As I've said, I found my lovely doorway around 9 o'clock, and for a time it was okay sitting there watching the world go by. In fact, it was quite pleasant in a way. But by 11, my feet and legs were cold. I was tired. My bedroll was giving me a numb bum, and I was dying for a pee. I saw no problem though. The station was just across the way. There'd be toilets in there somewhere, and all I had to do was stroll across. The numbness would go, and the walk would warm me up. Of course, I'd have to take my stuff. If I left it back here in the dark, it might be all right. But you can't take that sort of chance when your bedroll and your backpack are all you have in the world. So, 11:15, I got up and toted my stuff across to the station. The gents turned out to be halfway down the platform 1, but there was no barrier, so I motored on down, passing some down and outs sitting on benches. The place was underground. I trotted down the steps, beginning to relax, like you do when you know relief is imminent, and hit a snag 1. At the foot of the stairs was a turnstile, 10 pence. I dropped my roll and fished in my pockets a 50, 2 20s, and some copper. No 10. There was a glass box, a sort of office, so there must be an attendant. I called out, "Excuse me." My predicament was becoming acute. There was no answer. Nothing stirred. I glanced all around, checked my roll over the stile, and followed it. The relief was terrific. Halfway through, the door of a cubicle opened, and out popped a runty little guy of about 50, who, with a peaked cap and a fag hanging out of his gob. "Here," he croaked. "Have you paid?" No," I stammered. He made me splash my trainers. "I haven't got..." "I don't give a toss what you haven't got." He was really hoarse, a 60-a-day man. I could probably push him over with one hand. But I'd been about to ask him to change 20 pence, but his attitude upset me. I decided I'd vault the stile and save myself 10p. "I've no dosh," I told him, zipping up. He stood in front of the turnstile. "You don't leave till you've paid." His fag wagged up and down as he spoke, sifting ash down his front. I looked at him. "Get out of my way, old man." He shook his head. More ash. I moved towards him, swinging my roll. He dodged and swung an inept punch at my head. I ducked, shoved him aside, and vaulted the stile. I felt terrific, streetwise and tough, but I daren't linger in the station. I pictured him in his glass box, phoning the railway police. I hurried back up the platform and out to the street. When I got back to my doorway, someone was there. I didn't see him till I knocked his foot. He leapt up, a 6-footer, as wide as the door. "What's your problem, whack?" I was here first." God, that was stupid. What a stupid thing to say. He poked me in the chest. "Sod off, kiddo, before I drop you." "But I've been here 2 hours, I protested. "I just went to the station for a..." "Sod off now." I knew I'd have to go too. This was no chain-smoking runt you could knock down with a feather. This guy was what I'd been kidding myself I'd become, a streetwise tough. I turned away with a lump in my throat. I felt like I'd spend the rest of my life being pushed around. "It's not fair," I choked. What a wally I was. Fair? If I'd gone straight away, he might not have spotted the watch on my wrist, but he did. He grabbed my sleeve. "Nice watch. Giz it." "No." The watch was my last treasure, a present from Mum before Vince came on the scene. I tried to pull away, but he tightened his grip. "Giz it. If you don't want your face smashed in." I thought about calling for help. There were plenty of people passing, but I guess I knew it would be no good. Who's going to risk a fist or a knife to help a dosser? I took off the watch and handed it over. It was a struggle not to burst into tears. He grinned. "Ta, whack. Very nice of you. Now piss off." I went. And what does it demonstrate? It demonstrates his vulnerability. He's in a very, very vulnerable situation here. 17 years old, living with adults who are in the same situation, with no idea what to do. Okay? And it's also a narrative about him telling a story to us. So what is he doing? He is reflecting on the things that he did and the things that he said. Okay? That is probably the most important thing. Excellent.